ladies and gents, and we're going to be down the SAS op of Sledge as well. A pretty unique one that we haven't seen throughout Stage 3, but what else would you expect between PB and Soniqs?
Twitch ban is going to be the second one to come up alongside the Sledge ban there, just trying to make the top-down angles a little more than likely opened up by PB over the course of their attacking rounds. A little bit more difficult to achieve in the fact that, well, you can't use the Sledge. You're going to have to bring a buck if you're wanting to bring those to the table. More than likely, though, we'll end up just avoiding that entirely. Valk will be the first defender ban. Again, we're still seeing her be generally too universally useful depending on the team you ask, so she's usually first on the chopping block for a lot of squads, and Azami as well, the new addition to the permanent ban roster as of the past few months.
Yeah, well, there are no chains on the offensive side of this map. I can tell you that right now. We have access to every hard breacher under the sun, every silly piece of utility that you can potentially think of. It's available. You have Doc, you have Lion, you have all of these things to try and assist with your clears, as well as Nook in play as well, which we don't get to see too often, as she is our most banned operator on the offensive end, but she'll be available for these teams to use, so more than likely see her play skyrocket throughout this map. And why not? That secondary utility works so very well for a map like Oregon. You need frag grenades, she has them. You need EMPs, she's got those too. Whatever you need in order to get access to a site, she is able and capable of dealing with pretty easily. So we'll see what Parabellum can do in that regard. But past that, though, everything making quite a bit of sense, even down to Blast switching over to EMPs.
Away from that, though, not going to see any huge surprises when it comes to that defensive lineup specifically. Definitely a different take from the Soniqs, but not anything we haven't seen before, so it should be fun to see how they're going to potentially try to levy the aggression that they're absolutely bringing to the table. And curious more than anything to see how these Capcan traps work out for Rex in there, see if they're going to be able to potentially bait their opponents into these through the roam game, or of course, capitalize on the indecision that the attackers often have on this site and maybe get lucky trapping out one or two of the players on entry. Away from that, though, Kansan has been challenged over by T2. Thankfully, he's not positioned in T3, so not going to have a huge threat to his life immediately come by, but as you can see, he's here. And if he knocks that window up, and he might have had a POV on someone from PB on drone, but obviously doesn't want to take the risk on that this early on in the game, so plays it cautiously. Still with the potential to bang out that window in a few seconds, though, so we'll have to wait and see what he can work towards.
Yes, indeed. And it appears that the Soniqs have adhered to my cries from the previous game. A huge amount of roamers here now, and Knock barreling down onto Grixer's location, but he's ready for it. Obviously, that drone at his feet, kind of a call sign that somebody's more than likely in the area and trying to pick up their initial kill. But it's going to be on the other foot. Parabellum will get gunned down, and the first minute will subside. PB down a man.
Away from that, whole map goes quiet here as the Soniqs
Doc?
wait to find out exactly what they can work towards. And yeah, Doc gonna get downed here.
Where the heck did he even get downed at? He's down. Oh,
it was the Capcan traps. It was the Capcan traps.
Oh, the EDDs nip at his ankles, and Doc will go down, and Zofia can no longer pick herself back up. So he's going to need a teammate to come over here and res him back to 20 HP.
Thankfully, it doesn't look like anyone from the Soniqs actually managed to catch this. Of course, once again, for anybody who plays Siege a little bit more casually and doesn't follow our pro formats, the points you would normally see when something like that happens in usual games are not going to be present here. So, of course, they wouldn't have been notified of that down. They would have just had the audio cue from upstairs, and it still would have been probably too dangerous a route for someone on the Soniqs to take to be able to actually just get a confirmation. So they'll be more than happy with the 20 HP drain on Doc.
And that's not even the point of them either. The point is to waste time and deal considerable damage, which is
exactly
what they did. See, you can follow along, John. Doc is going to take some considerable damage, and the timer. I mean, it's been severely injured. We're down to a minute here. Kool-Aid will at least be able to open up construction, but just to remind you, the Soniqs had quite the unique setup downstairs. Look at all of the soft paneling around here. They can contest every entry point that Parabellum has at their disposal. Mine is construction, but I mean, they can just practically give that up if they truly want to. They have so much utility to be able to play this off of site, and not only that, but the man advantage as well.
Shots in from Doc to try and stun out some of the resistance by Pillar. Is going to work out too as Asian strikes true for PB and gets the first kill going against Kansan. That trades us back down into a 4v4, but they're frozen past this point. No other access points to work their way in. Geo, though, going to be forced out forward. The down is claimed on him as he reacts too slowly. Blaz with a second pick off as well. The defense falling to shreds here. Finally, Rexon activates, though, with a double. Knocks out both of the players, putting hallway pressure onto this site. He's still got more to go and nearly loses himself there on the hallway swing, but at the moment, outwitting the aggression learned from Kool-Aid, it was going all well until Rexon had to activate when he instead shuts it all down and gives the round over to SQ.
Richie is an absolute G. Every single time we see him in a situation like this, when his number gets called up, Rexon can make magic happen, and he does it in the first round of Oregon. He paints Freezer red, and he will give Soniqs their first defensive win. A round from him, and one that was starting to fall to pieces as well for the defense, minus Rexon, everyone losing their gunfights in considerable fashion as well. I mean, it looked like a walk in the park for PB.
Pretty much not a great round, ultimately, for the Soniqs.
No.
Just a really great round coming in there for Rexon, of course, to try and activate himself. And thankfully, save the day for the Soniqs, as they'll still be able to claim that round, but probably be a little worried returning down to that, and we'll want to rebuffer those defenses and potentially a different setup when we go for the second try on that, more than likely around round 3, or rather 4.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Soniqs had a gorgeous setup, I'd like to say. Even when it came down to the late round, like, they didn't have exact preventative utility, but they still had impact, so you can kind of pseudo deal with those in order to try and prevent somebody from going for a plant. But it was really those big fights that we saw Parabellum swinging into Site 4 that Soniqs quickly got dispatched by. The big one being there, Geo, trying to play close to the door, and a beautiful nade out of Parabellum dislodges him and forces him to try and play with a heavy hand, but obviously he's outwitted and taken down.
So we're going to see a little bit of an active defense put up by the Soniqs now as they move up.
I swear to God, I thought Gunner just did that.
I thought so too for a second. It wasn't. That was off camera, folks. It was Rexon over here by Big Tower. I'm assuming someone tried to take a challenge by the staircase, or maybe like on that doorway leading into cafeteria, and unfortunately paid the price for it. Could have been a peek from like a window too that Rexon got lucky and managed to snag. Either way though, Asian is going to end up going down as a result of that.
Man, does that suck as well. I mean, you do still have some, good frag grenades to be able to use to get some of the shields and other stuff out, but you really want Asian's frag power, not only with the impacts, but the concussions as well. They're so fantastic for clearing out a lot of different portions of the map. Rexon is an absolute god in this game so far. A triple kill for him on the round. He's been outside more than he's been in, and he's looking to get another one. Peek me. What are you doing, Eska? Sit down. Oh my goodness gracious. That is 7 kills. Make that 7 kills.
yeah. Grixer comes in. He wants a piece of the pie, too.
Grixer's like, Rexon, you got to calm down, man.
4 kills on this round. I think 3 on the last one as well. So he's killed just an absolutely insane level of players right now here. Great stuff from Rexon, as he's, to some extent, single-handedly carrying the Soniqs through these first 2 rounds here.
I mean, I didn't know that
drone presence is going to be able to easily carve away a second round. They said, all right, you guys want to make the first one close? Well, let's get back control on the second one here. And we'll just have to wait and see what they can send to us for on the third one as well. This is obviously where the defense gets stretched out a little bit more, as we're going to be on that tertiary site on the first floor.
Penguin said something pretty funny to me when he was walking out of the room, because I was like, oh, we got to cast Oregon again, right? Yeah. 2 in a row, like Oregon by itself is like, all right, I can get through it. But back-to-back Oregons is a little bit different, right? He's like, oh, come on, man, you just got to enjoy the mini games of Oregon, right? And it's like we're going to the carnival, right? Well, what do you do about this circus that we have going on right now? That's my question, Penguin. I can't wait to see his analysis after this as well, because I think it's always interesting to see what people consider to be the right move in a situation like this, right?
Absolutely the case. So Grixer and Rexon have both started this game off on fire so far. I'm going to jinx it here, apologies, but I do need to say the stat. Both players yet to die in the first 2 rounds here, as we see Grixer at 3-0 and Rexon at 7-0. He's gone, not reverse double agent, as he does have an assist in there, actually, but yeah.
It's just, it boggles my mind that they have every single kill in the first 2 rounds on those 2 people, and Grixer only has 3 of them. It's so wild. Oh my goodness. Well, Parabellum obviously down their timeout. We're about 30 seconds into round 3 here. I'll try and do my best to stop being so gobsmacked about this situation. Parabellum, they're kind of throwing things at the wall and hoping that it sticks. Asian's actually going to pick up Gridlock here. This is a choice that we never see go through. He's going to be rocking the F90 with some smoke, so we'll see if those track stingers can try and slow down this roam game.
Rexon, though, is still going to be positioned in a very aggressive spot, and he's not the only one. You can see Grixer supporting him from a little bit further down the hallway towards attic entryway, and they have a third player in T2. What is this lineup? of the alibi clones as
Don't
well.
ask questions
Just
you don't want
three
the
of them
answer to, John.
stacked next to each other in the attic.
What I do on my time is my time.
Is Grixer trying to play like the shell game here?
The cups. He's the guy on the street in New York just moving cups. Oh my! And he might
Look,
just stand
this
in
is
one
a
of
good
these
bait
things as
actually
well.
too.
Yeah, exactly. Like they have to try and get rid of all of these, and not only that, but if they play this out in a weird way, Grixer could technically speaking just stand in one of them. Really,
no
throw
way
them
he
for a
goes where the
loop.
third one just got shot from. He's thinking about it. You can see him creeping forward. Rexen though nearly cut off on the cross. Here we go. The Track Stingers. They take him down. Asian gets the finishing blow as well. That's the first time I've ever seen a player actually get down by Track Stingers. So props to Asian for that accolade in my casting book. But it's not over yet for PB. They've taken down Kansan as well. Much better mitigation of the extended game this time. Controlling Rexen, of course. Grixer potentially still going to be a problem in T2, but I think they have accounted for that in this clear. Asian, there we go, knocking out another element of PB, or rather of the Soniqs defense by taking down Kansan.
Well, minus drones, Soniqs really haven't gotten too much. Grixer will finally take down Blaz, but with Track Stingers practically everywhere, it's going to be difficult for these defensive members to try and rotate, minus Grixer's impacts. That could be quite useful in a situation like this. Kool-Aid obviously won't have to deal with those Track Stingers as he is on the offense. And it's going to be a smoke push here for Grixer, but he's caught off guard. And that's the damnation of smokes in Siege. It's not nearly as good as other games. You can usually see like your shoulder or something peek out before you even get a glance on them, and he's gunned down because of it. What a round from Parabellum. Huge adaptation and a fantastic roam clear to boot.
Absolutely the case. So for the Soniqs, we're going to hope that that was just the tertiary site, not really favoring. This is two sets of Track Stingers there, too. I'm pretty sure they really did not want anyone roaming around White Stairs trying to mess with their potential clear. So PB, a bit of an overzealous insurance policy, but it works out especially well to take care of Rex in there. Nice turnaround from PB to quickly correct the mistakes immediately after their pause. Now we get the real test, though, as the Soniqs get to return to their primary sites with the basement up first. Kids will be on the next round. This is when Parabellum's attacking strategy will really be tested once again.
Yeah, we'll see if Parabellum can put Soniqs back in quarantine. They were able to box them in that last round, get some isolated players on the top floor, and continue the snowball in towards the kitchen plant where they were finally able to decide it. But they're going to need to start chain linking these together, and it all starts with a successful downstairs offense. This is one of the most difficult sites in the game to try and bunker bust, especially if the Soniqs can get a lead-off pick or just get rid of some important utility. We'll have to see how this ends up going. The roam game the last time was pretty damning for Parabellum. Well, not actually, really, as I'm kind of picking up the pieces from that previous round. Parabellum was able to clear things out, but that's actually where things fell down, and Rexen got that triple inside of the first round. So PB, not that big of a deal on clear, but when it came to the site execute, just not able to find a hot-handed Rexen.
Let's see how Rexen might be able to activate himself once again here on round 4. He's gone over towards the mirror this time around, so he's going to be even trickier potentially with the angles he'll play from, whether it's going to be on that inside laundry closet or, of course, behind the freezer wall mirror setup we just saw him go for. Plenty of options will be given to both himself and his teammates. The real star here on PB is going to be, of course, Eska. Once again, bringing that Amaru into the fold for the attackers. We'll see where the swing ends up potentially helping here, but for the most part, I think he's just picked it up for the gun this time around here. The comfortable pick that'll come with that potential clear.
He's going to hop right into attic. They've droned out the top floor already, so we shouldn't have to be too worried about this. Have a drone on the mid floor as well. This is more than likely Eska just going to be slowly working his way around the map with the remaining members of his squad and see if they can try and lock up some of these stairwells and things along those lines. For the Soniqs, they are into the turtle setup. They've got the Mira implemented, they've got Grixer on the Warden, as well as some laser gates and Jaeger. This is all call signs of them trying to use their utility from sight to really punish Parabellum when it comes to their execution. And why not? The Soniqs were able to delay for such a long period of time the last time. They were just lacking true defensive utility when it came to the site plan. As I said before, they kind of just had pseudo utility, those impacts that they could toss down and get some good damage off with, but nothing like a nitro cell like they have now.
All right, well, half the round, a little more than that, in fact, has already been bled away, and it's been a very quiet round for both teams. PB has not been able to catch any mistakes from the Soniqs at the same time. Soniqs have not jumped out to try and take any additional fights here.
Interesting. They have, oh, I love that. That was so gorgeous from Parabellum. So what they're going to do is they're going to charge the EMP fully, and it's actually going to reach through the ground to grab those ADSs. They get rid of the ADSs there, so the shield's now bare and they can get that, but obviously that was the end goal. Get a nade in there and try and nade out the player playing inside of Elbow, but either way, a heck of a setup for PB. Geo now going for a heck of a setup of his own. He's going to get stunned out here. Grixer down low, trying to balance back and forth between a multitude of different angles. Geo, oh my, some amazing shots back and forth, but it's mostly the other members to assist him, not able to get the double, but doesn't really matter at the end of the day. The Soniqs are able to leave a beautiful trail of PB all over the bottom floor. So we'll see what they're able to do going into this next round, but Parabellum at least are able to get their heads wrapped around the site. It was just the site that really fought back.
Yeah, once again, that's become a core issue for some of our teams. As we saw in the previous matchup, that was a bit of a problem as well, just trying to attack the interior setup there. That's when the defense can really activate themselves and get back into it.
Yeah, yes. Oh, yes. This is exactly what I wanted. Oh, we're going to get it 6.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's attackers. You got to be careful on that.
No fun. Yeah, we would have loved to see that last round, though, there, after they got that EMP and that ADS out. Just bullhead your way right into Elbow, get rid of that shield player. I mean, Blitz isn't exactly the worst thing in the world on Oregon.
Would have been great for the basement attack, as you said.
Yeah,
Just don't see it coming out here, unfortunately, on the kids' attack.
Yeah, not going to work nearly as well. I mean, even if you do try and do something like, I don't know, maybe like hop the attic window or hop double or something like that, where you can try and bear down on Sonic's setup pretty quickly, there's still going to be some disadvantages in that. You really got to take into consideration. So definitely like the Nomad, like the Thatcher even more. Just makes things super easy for them to get these walls open and continue on living throughout the round. Asian's going to switch on over to Ash, and not only that, he's rocking the R4C over the G36C.
All right, so we've got PB spawned out on the map. Looking to once again take control of things away from the Soniqs. The Soniqs are going to have a few shenanigans to throw out, specifically over there in Big Tower. Rexon will be holding control of the small tower area, but quite passively, as you can see, he's only maintaining that from the cafeteria spot. Rest of the team, of course, brought quite lightly near the site, definitely wanting to once again take the fight directly to PB on their initial entry here, and doubling down on some of the Big Tower plays. Well, we've got a player on Repel. There's a bit of drone info leaking in as to what's going on in the attic, but not a whole lot of actionable intel, unfortunately, for PB to work into here. Are just waiting, I think, for the members of the Soniqs to fall back, and then they'll move in and clear this themselves and begin working on that barricade that was just set up.
Well, we've only had 4 rounds, obviously this being round 5, and Rexon and Grixer have combined for 15-2-1. That's pretty disgusting. Definitely something you'd want on your team, I'm pretty sure. So, Soniqs, obviously in amazing straits as of right now, and looking to try and continue on their defensive warpath. Parabellum haven't gotten into the building just yet, but they've got some gorgeous angles from the outside that could be a detriment to Soniqs if they misplay this.
He's going to try to open things up for his teammates later on in the round, but his adventure will take him up to the second floor as well. I'm not going to try to proceed through the first floor where Geo might have been able to pick him off. Geo will still have play potential, of course, but Asian now with a little bit of a cutoff towards that could potentially work on finding this player. And oh, good decision made there. So we see a little bit of aggression lined up, I think, from Blaz trying to go into the garage. He second guesses it, and it's a good thing, too, as Gunner was waiting just on the inside to cut him off. They're going to route a drone probably over here towards Gunner's position and reconfirm that it's all safe before moving in and hopefully find out that, indeed, that is not the case. That drone is taken off, though, and there we go. The play is made. Geo, though, with a double for himself, catching the case as there's an attempt to hop in through the window as well. Now Grixer able to activate. Eska will finally find a successful cutoff by moving in through the attic, but that's only 1 kill against 3 here. Soniqs absolutely taking the advantage from that fight, especially with the case now being down on the ground, and Geo having the additional capability to bait out potentially Blaz in a moment here.
Oh, what a shot from Blaz, though. But the damage is already done. It's 2-3, and somebody has got to get this case down. There's no drones for Parabellum to try and utilize either that are going to be of any assistance. Potentially some flank drones set up, but the majority of the Soniqs members on site and looking to prevent this plant. Kansan does still have a smoke in his pocket as well, so should be fairly easy for him. Blaz is going to EMP things, but should he EMP'd over towards this actual laser gate instead to be able to assist himself? They can't even get the wall open. Might have been a distraction, but now Eska will obviously be known. The BP in Trophy sees him through the attic single panel. He's bouncing back and forth. Gunner will take him down, and that's going to be a Soniqs round.
Good consistency coming in from the Soniqs and their 2 primary sites, but they do have to be cautious here if they're looking to lock in the 5-1. We'll What could very well become the scoreline on the next round, of course, is if we remember back when they played on this first floor hold the first time around, things went very much in a different direction, much more heavy-handedly towards PB, and I see no reason why PB would not be able to replicate that success on a second go-around. Did have the pause from the Soniqs, of course, in the meanwhile, so they have some corrections that they can now apply, but it is going to be back on the same site. Not going to try and risk it with the cafeteria hold. It's still meeting room that they'll play into.
Yes, indeed. We bring in some other traps and things along those lines. We'll have the Razor Blooms in now. Obviously, Rexon will be back with the EDDs of Capcan as well to try and slow down this clear, but really it's all about the preventative maintenance of meeting. You really want to make sure that it's difficult to try and get that plant down around stage, and that's why we see so many different forms of utility to try and prevent a play like that. Some traps to try and force Parabellum back out their breach once they do grasp a hold of it, and then some nitro cells and some strong fire power, like the potential for Gunner to swing through some smokes and things along those lines if he so chooses. And that actually might rear its ugly head here soon, as Eska is going to pick up the Osa. She's not going to be coming in with the smokes, though. Instead, it'll be the secondary impact EMPs, which we have grown to know and love. So they'll have access to the wall a little bit easier than they normally would with having to get control up top and then having to destroy any mute jammers or anything of the sort through the soft paneling on the floor of Attic.
Very, very slow rolling opening to the round, though. PB definitely want to make sure they don't mess things up on the second go-around. This is where they know they'll more than likely have a secured second round as long as they can repeat the same play out from the previous round. It will be a little bit more difficult this time, specifically because of some of the switch-ups in utility that we have seen, with a bigger emphasis on traps as well as the mitigation that could come in from Gunner when the flash dumps work their way forward. Thankfully, it's pretty light on that from PB, so they shouldn't have to worry about too much of their utility being hard countered by Gunner specifically here, but still, later on into the round, still come into play in a big way. PB ready to contest against things up here on the upstairs hold, and they will find the first kill. I don't believe it's going to be against the hold from that specific angle, though. It's against Gunner way downstairs. So all this talk about how the Warden could potentially change things up, and he's unfortunately the first to die.
Well, I wanted to say this as well. Like, they really, really need to lean into these explosives, given the fact that they do have Osa in play. They have one Nitro Cell and a singular impact. Both of those are able to take out her shields, but if they don't have those in the proper positioning, then they could run into a lot of different issues. Gonna be able to get rid of the cam and set up the shield, so Eska's got everything set up for Big Tower now, but how is Soniqs going to respond?
Doc at the moment here, looking to try and open up an opportunity over towards meeting room. Definitely trying to catch the position that I believe was played by Geo on the last hold there. Rexon, though, swinging out. Catching Blaz with his pants down is going to be able to eliminate him as he tries to get sneaky in towards the plant. Kool-Aid still feels the confidence to move forward, though, and start the plant procedure in the back of stage. They'll indeed begin that. Here comes Gio on the big flank. They have no idea that he's here. He won't be able to stop the plant as he's too overwhelmed as he approaches the situation. Also gives an opponent time to back up and establish crossfire against him, so PB take control yet again. Rexon now left alone inside of a 1v3 here. Has the correct read on the top flank that's going to be deployed against him, but that player not feeling too adventurous at this point. They want to let the players on even terrain have a chance at this one before they need to peek out, and there we go. Doc finishes things down, and that 2-4 scoreline comes true.
Very well done from Parabellum. That's twice today on these Oregon matchups that we've seen Big Tower be the hot spot for these teams trying to take control of kitchen and meeting, and it going quite swimmingly as well, getting some pretty considerable picks and then translating that into a pretty fast setup. What I loved about Parabellum's plant there as well is that they just didn't wait on the timer. They're not like, oh, we're going to wait 45 seconds just to see if the Soniqs want to do anything. We're ready for the plant, so let's just plant it now. And that makes it to where the Soniqs have to hop too. There was no preventative Nitro Cell from downstairs. Gio has to go for the flank up tower. Yeah, he gets one, but he immediately gets a refrag, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, especially when Soniqs are bleeding so many bodies at that point.
All right, well,
who is that guy, John?
I know. I guess we're about to find out. We should see the results here in a second, I hope. Blaz or Grixer? Oh, it's close. It's Blaz.
It's Blaz. That's actually quite surprising. You know, Grixer has been...
he's got the EU advantage, to be fair. Yeah, everybody from Europe watching voted for him, probably.
Yeah, he's got that new player luster as well. Everyone's just trying to rub the shine off of him, right? Like, it's like, oh, Blaz is in. He's playing. Meanwhile, Grixer has been one of the most dominant players in the entirety of the NAL the entire year. Not even the whole year. Like a year and a half. But listen, I'm sure Blaz is that guy. I'm sure.
All right, well, let's see who can finish out their guy prophecy in the final few rounds. The Soniqs just need 3 more to go. PB, a little bit more than that, but still respectable distance away here, especially if this half starts out with a 1 round. There'll only be that single round away from tying things up against the Soniqs, and we've got a real game on our hands if they can close that out. Pretty passive start to this one for the Soniqs. Only 30 seconds have transpired, though, so wasn't going to be expecting a whole lot out of them. Much like PB's initial clear, they want to make sure they account for everything here as well. It is their first time getting to see what PB's setup looks like on this map.
The duo of Grixner and Rexen at the half have a total of 17 and 5. Which is just absurd. Amazing stuff out of them, but we really want to see them double down on it here. I don't know if Blaz knows that Gunnar knows that Blaz knows that they're potentially here, but it appears that neither of them knew that the other one was there in the first place. He's going to drop off, so little of a situation there in between the two, but fortunately enough, no blood is shed, so it'll only be Parabellum giving up security, but the hatch is already open, so Gunnar not really having to worry too much about that in the first place. He does have that secondary hard breach, but it won't be able to be utilized in this situation.
About halfway through the round now. Soniqs have been fairly composed so far, but they are going to need to get a bit more aggressive here. Either taking out the utility to open up a cleaner path into the site, which you could see them doing parts of that as you saw a little bit of an incendiary going off there just a few moments prior. That's one of the Goyo canisters from Blaz being dealt with here before they even make the descent. This is good time management skills coming out from the Soniqs, but like we said, this all has to translate into a successful descent right around that 30-second mark here, or all this setup is a moot point. I think they managed to knock out another one of the Goyo barricades down below as well. I did hear an explosion go off. There is still a third one, as you can see, positioned just outside of E door, just at the top right of the B bomb barricade there. So keep your eyes out for that, as that'll more than likely slow down the Soniqs clear if they're going to use E, which that is not necessarily a certainty yet either here. They've kept their options open, and the player lineups are not telling us anything indicative of where they're going to go yet.
Nothing too indicative of what Soniqs' plans are just yet, minus the Candelas, obviously, that kind of leans towards an E-box execution, but that doesn't mean that they have to do that. You can still toss those through the paneling on Freezer if you so choose, or things like that. Soniqs are trying to do their best to open up some stronger lines of sight and make it really difficult for a lot of these PB members to try and stick to some of the harsher angles around the site. And speaking of harsh, this setup is harsh for SQ to try and play into, because a lot of these flashes are going to be counteracted by Asian, and not only that, some harsh crosses abound, but fortunately enough for the Soniqs, they've gotten through the thick of it. They've taken down Asian and Eska, but finally, this defensive setup has teeth. Doc will take down Kansan. Kool-Aid still with the smoke in his pocket, but Gunner's directly behind him. 2 big kills out of PB. They take the man advantage, but do they know Gunner is directly around here? The case not in their pocket. Gunner will finally pick it up. He'll start the plant, and now they have to go soul searching, but it's going to be super easy. Kool-Aid just walked out of the closet and guns him down. Very awkward round there for the Soniqs.
Yeah, very disconjointed take ultimately when they were finally forced into the site. Didn't really feel like a lot of the players had the confidence necessary to move forward, and that seemed to lead to a lot of things getting off-timed as they eventually were able to push in. It definitely seemed like there was a lack of intel too, and we had that player sitting in the middle of the site and just didn't really know where to go to make the most effective play past that point, especially when you consider that player also had to try and get the case down. It was just seemed like a very overwhelming situation for the Soniqs there, so they're not able to capture it. That is great news for Parabellum, though, as they bring it back to only a 1-round deficit now.
And that shows you just how hard it is to bunker bust the defensive setup on Oregon basement. You know, Soniqs get 2 leadoff picks there, John, and they still lose the round because of how lethal the crosses are from PB, taking out a multitude of Soniqs members and making things more complicated the closer and closer we get to 0 timer. Ultimately, Parabellum taking it because of said timer. Kansan flashing Grim there for just a split second, but he's going to quickly
not going to happen
over to Nook. Yeah, what do you think of Grim? Personally,
I think Gio's on the better Grim right now, so I think that pretty much.
Yeah. You know, you make a point, and it's very valid. I'm proud of you for that.
I think you just look at those top 2 player swaps, and that explains my opinion on Grim. So.
Yeah, that's a pretty good opinion to have. Personally, his utility is a little useless right now in comparison to a lot of other info units, right? You'd much rather just have somebody else in your lineup, but I think that there's some interesting stuff that they can definitely do in the future to make it to where Grim's a more viable pick. First of all, give him a magnified sight. I think that they were a little over the top about that just because he was a 3-speed. They're a little worried about it, but past that, the beehives, I think, should act like actual beehives. It'd be nice to just like place those on flank or something, and then you have to worry about a bee, and then you can counter out in some other way. But that's for the balance team to deal with, and not us, John. We just get to say our stupid random ideas sometimes and see if anybody picks up on it. So it's the beauty of commentating. Well, past that, though, not too much going on inside of the map. We've got some drones getting taken down, but the Soniqs still in good straits in that category. That was actually the first drone that we saw shot at about the 215 mark. So doing better than a multitude of different teams across the entirety of R6. So some stuns in now, but again, Soniqs really just trying to deal with the utility setup at the current moment.
Yep, a minute used so far in doing that, a similar amount of time used in the previous setup too. It definitely seems like Soniqs don't want to get tripped up by gadgets in the middle of this execute here, so focusing very heavily on making sure that it's either mitigated or at least they have full awareness of that type of setup before they start to commit players to the inside. That did cost them a little bit on the previous round, of course. It left them with a lack of time to some extent, despite having those early entries, and man, Parabellum definitely trying to get aggressive here, but just cannot find any luck. Thankfully, they haven't outright lost anyone, but both Asian and Doc now taking some hits. Blaz also going to fall outright. That's not either of the two players that were damaged. They're still dealing with that health deficit on top of the lost player now. Yeah,
that was Rexon on the complete opposite end of the map. We watched Kansan toss that grenade in, and it actually ended up getting caught up, I do believe, by an ADS. Grixer will take down one, G will take out another. Parabellum are trying to get it back in body count, but it's just not working out for them, John.
It's a bold challenge from Asian there, too, at such low HP that he was at. Goes for the direct peek against it. Geo continuing to read into these swings now as we're down to only one for the defense, and hey, it does get the planter, so we're not done with this just yet. Doc now alone, but at the same time, he's alone with the case, so this is potentially winnable if he could wrangle the situation. Just a little bit too much for him to deal with, though, as Q finally gets a push over towards Kids and is able to take him down, locking in a response round for them and keeping the lead at a +2 advantage.
I was going to say, if Doc gets this, he can start a course on Masterclass on clutching, because, I mean, it was a beautiful start, wasn't it? The Nitro Cell right into the pre-fire to the player on top of top white, excuse me. But wasn't able to get it done. So Soniqs going to pull farther ahead yet again here, up 2 rounds, looking for the penultimate one here in round 9. But not only that, a fragging showcase for the ages in between Grixer and Rex. And yes, we've had some highlight moments from some of the other players, but most specifically Geo, as he's had a couple of highlight moments, especially around like main stairs, right, where we saw that big play with the castle. But past that, it's been the Grixer and Rexon show. It's been the tag team for the ages. It's practically been like watching the Hardy Boys jump off of some ladders here. So, been quite the show, but Parabellum have at least been able to fight back here. What an operator lineup shift, though, from the Soniqs. It's all hands on deck, John.
Yep, every single member of the team shifting away from this one, so interesting choices. Potentially, Soniqs may have expected PB to go for a second attempt upstairs instead. That could just explain this one, but regardless, yeah, all 5 ops end up changing from the pre-select. We end up with a Nook, an Amaru, as well as an Ace, a Zofia, and a Buck, ultimately, for the Soniqs roster here. Should be pretty much perfect for attacking the site. Mind you, folks, by the way, once again, in case you didn't catch the ban at the beginning of this game, Sledge is banned out. You'd probably prefer a Sledge here, but don't really have a choice. So
beggars can't be choosers. You know, like he's out, so you work the sled, or rather the Buck in, and just try and get things done as much as you can. But the beauty of Buck is that you can also, you know, get an angle from underneath players as well. It's something that Buck is not capable of. I mean, in certain situations where you can get up on like a table or something like that, you can actually smack the ceiling, but those are few and far between in Rainbow Six.
All right, so once again, very slow opener from the Soniqs, building up a massive intel base in these first minute and a half of play, not wanting to take any risks unless they know for certain it's a fight that they can justify taking for themselves. So Rexon has been able to actually shift forward into the second floor in the meanwhile here, starting to clear things out towards Master. He's more likely going to proceed through. Yep, we've got a soft breach here on the closet, so nicely played. Asian thought he's going to be a little too quick to get caught there, but instead it's the reverse. Rexon able to wrangle in, or we can kill here against Asian.
It's been dicey between these two teams, constantly trying to outwit each other in these aim duels, but Rexon getting the better of practically everybody across the BB lineup. So Rexon with the power position now gifted to Soniqs off of the back of his efforts. Take down Asian, and what a plant now looking for Gunner as he's worked his way into split. Grixer's taken down one. There's no way that they prevent this from going down. Not a single person will be able to stop them, and Rexon somehow found 2 more. It's down to Kool-Aid. He's slipped through the cracks, but, well, not really, has he? They've actually discovered him. Rexon will be taken down, and it won't be the quad for him, but it'll more than likely be the round for the Soniqs, as Gunner will quickly end that.
Gunner with too much control over the situation, and the Soniqs overall with too much control over this matchup now has set up a very, very dangerous timeline here for PB. Need to see an immediate rebound and a perfect one at that. This first round should be somewhat palatable considering they can at least go back to their basement hold, which they locked at the beginning of the half, but after that point, they have nothing consistent to fall back on. Those were 2 very one-sided rounds going towards the Soniqs of both the upstairs and the first floor hold.
Shall we go from bad to worse?
Go ahead.
Well, after the first 2 rounds, we actually saw Parabellum's tactical timeout be utilized because Rexen and Grixer were single-handedly, I mean, if I can use that with 2 people, right? Destroying Parabellum. It was truly disgusting.
Dual-handedly.
Yeah, dual-handedly. They were assisting each other. It was a handicap match in favor of Parabellum, and they still somehow lost. I don't know how that happened, but yeah. So up 3 rounds now for the Soniqs. Parabellum have not been able to bounce back in any considerable fashion.
So we'll see, like we said, good hopes for this one at least to be able to potentially pick up a 4th round, but it is going to have to be a big change-up on the next 2 site runs for PB. And that's assuming they can lock this one in even. Obviously, the Soniqs will have made their own series of change-ups here. We're going to see that Ying brought back into the fold. Now, obviously, since it is going to be a basement attack, we'll find a lot more use out of her here, so Gunnar will be picking that up. Rexen is going to end up falling onto the Yana once the repick phase closes out. Aside from this, it's pretty much a lot of the same that we have seen before, of course, with Geo now onto the Habana as well to quickly deal with the hatches and, of course, any walls downstairs if they absolutely need to take them out, such as the E-Wall Asian, though. Getting some revenge this time. Not against the player you'd expect either. Geo ends up going down, so the hatch work going to be a little bit more difficult. And when I say a little, I mean a lot. Panson, no! I don't even know where the angle was, but he finds the exact trade onto Asian, more than likely catching him in the classroom hallway here where Kansas droning out right now.
I was just about to say as well, that was the most spiteful spawn peek
freezer
from
door.
Asian. Parabellum get caught off guard on their offensive end, and finally he's like, oh yeah, you guys think you're going to win it here? I'll spawn peek. Gets Geo, probably pretty happy about it in the situation as well, and then gets gunned down as soon as he dons the bottom of White Stairs. What a bounce back from the Soniqs. So keep it at 4-4. Not only that, though, John, they've got control of the building now.
Yep, absolutely the case. Second and first floor is now under the control of Soniqs. They still have that glaring issue, though. They're not going to have any way to access hatches. They have no secondary hard breach brought to the table this time, so the loss of Geo is a pretty big deal. In terms of the trade and utility lost from it, Parabellum still ends up winning that exchange at the end of the day here, as the Soniqs will have to directly play in through the staircases or construction at this point to get access.
Absolutely. Soniqs, with that in mind, have to try and go further into the site. They need to try and get some considerable frags onto some of these players. They're closer to these entry points. Obviously, the most difficult one going to be this back position around Pillar as well as Construction Elbow. There's just so many things to try and worry about. The Goyo Canisters is going to pop on that, so that's going to allow the Soniqs to spin up this drone game again and try and reconfirm where Parabellum is.
Just a free 20 seconds or so of delay, basically, is what you get out of that one there. It's an easy way to make sure that the effective utility coming from Goyo is effective at the end of the day here. And you can tell, it's especially so on this round. Soniqs 3-stacking that at the moment. Toxic Bays beginning to flood, and only 1 left, so they will be able to waste out these Bays without having to potentially challenge them here. Let's leave them with about that 30-second marker remaining. Gonna be a little uncomfortable for sure for the Soniqs, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of them tries to dance past this in a second. But Soniqs still have a trick up their sleeve as well, mainly in the form of Gunnar with these Candelas. Utility inside of the site, there should be a decent amount of mitigation for this, just on the ADSs, of course, but at the same time, those Candelas can pop out before it can eat them, so we'll have to wait and see as they're out. They ring out, and indeed the execute begins to come through.
Oh, no.
Blaz behind the laundry machine! The second kill is fully blinded, also beautifully played by Blaz. Rexen needs to be a literal hero here now, but he can't even get it started. Doc gets the final kill instead, and PB locks in round number 4.
And here I am thinking that the Soniqs did such a bang-up job of trying to pull some of the vision from Parabellum towards the construction side. You see that massive rotation, 2 players on cons, 1 on big tower, and then you see Geo as well as the Nook rotate over towards main stairs so they can go for a different sort of play. They leave a singular member over on the construction side to try and sneak in later on. That's going to be Rexen, but everything that Rexen is doing here banks on the fact that Soniqs find some success on their initial entry points, which they don't. Blaz quickly deals with both of the key members in that situation. The Ying with the case, even though they knew exactly where Blaz was, and then he immediately kills Nook after. I mean, what a shot as well. The stun going off at a moment's notice before he's able to get that last kill, and he still lands the shot. Some amazing situational awareness from him.
Solid hold from PB at the end of the day, but also at the end of the day, that was the site we somewhat expected them to close out. The real test begins now as they go for their second floor hold and eventually, more than likely, their first floor hold if they find success here also. Some big adjustments need to be played as Soniqs was able to wash their way through these 2 attacks without too much of an issue the last go around here. So let's see what type of change-ups PB have made, as indeed we are still going to keep the Candelas alive for the Soniqs alongside a new EE1D for Geo, and of course the Nook coming back into the fold here for Kansan also.
Yeah, you really hope Parabellum did their homework because the Soniqs is putting them to the test. These defensive setups need some breath of fresh air in a certain sense. It can't all just come from one player, so we're looking to PB across the board to step up to the plate and try and knock a home run out here, shore up this score line, try and guarantee us an overtime here on Oregon, which a map that's not usually too action-packed, but in between these two, it's been quite entertaining.
Yep, definitely the case. Soniqs, of course, having to work for their full 3 points today to try to stay in that first place position. Already locked into it here, but still going to be looking to preserve it by adding those extra 3 points. And it's a good thing, too, because if they're able to lock this one in, they are technically tied with TSM for points at the moment, but I believe they have a +1 round differential. They're just going off of what's currently on Wikipedia, by the way, so I might be a little off on that. But yeah, so if they're able to close this one out, opens up a nice little gap between them and TSM to make sure they're going to stay in first place here heading into next week.
Not only that, but they'll be at 15 points, and if you guys remember from a multitude of the
number.
players that we've had here on the analyst desk, 16 is that magic number. If you get to 16, you can basically punch your own ticket from that moment onwards. Obviously, you know, some circumstances can call for more points, but that's really that golden goose that you're looking to try and reach at any moment in the season. Grixer, speaking of moments of brilliance, trying to push his way up main stairs in a pretty considerable fashion. Blaz is dead to the world. Where's the help? There he is, finally. He'll get gunned down from Asian coming up main stairs. That's going to be the hard breach of Ace out the window, but some pretty solid damage done to PB's setup, at least from the trophy perspective.
Soniqs 2 for 2 on losing their hard breach on entry here, though, is going to potentially cause some problems. Oh, what a swing on the timing there from Kool-Aid, but Kansan, he is able to catch it. He reads into the potential threat, and more likely a good calm from his teammates there, too. A little slow on the reaction, of course, to the school hallway push, so he's not going to be able to immediately catch the trade on the next defender here, but still, it gives Soniqs the advantage. Asian does seem to want a little bit more to play into, though. He's going to try to proceed forward, wants to take the challenge. They've heard him, of course, shooting out the drone, but can they find the right timing to kill him? Yes, Rexen can, and now it all falls to this. Eska versus the world, and he falls to Kansan on the first try. The Soniqs take it in regulation and continue to excel here as our first place team in the NAL.
What a game out of the Soniqs, but specifically Grixer and Rexen, as they show exactly why so many players are